We're back on the bearing cap, video 3 here. So today is assembly. We've finished all our confirmation and measurements you guys saw in video 2. All of this driven by this cracked boss right here. So we're going on with our donor cap today. We're going to start off just a little bit of motor oil that I'm going to come put on all these bearing surfaces. And when I've got that done off of video, after I've oiled everything up, touch the cams a little bit with some oil, then we'll assemble. All right, our bearing cap has been touched up with oil. Our cams have been touched up with oil. Our cap is in place. It's just hand tight. Basically, I just use a hex on an extension that I can turn by hand through my tightening sequence to get everything down tight. And she did seat in there well. She seemed to receive the cams just fine into the grooves. Didn't feel any binding. Didn't feel anything odd in the fit, as I did not expect to after careful study. We're going to torque this down, and then we're going to do a couple of dry cranks with the socket wrench. We've completed the proper torque sequence and double checked our torques. Everything feels good up top. So we will come down here now and remove the lock from our crank. That's going to allow us to spin the top end by hand and just get a feel for how that cam's traveling. Okay, I've been here a minute spinning this engine by hand already and listening, feeling what have I got. And as I spin it by hand, I'm not sensing any metal on metal, no friction, no binding. Everything feels normal and good to me. So from here, I'm going to complete the 24,000 mile service items that I was checking off before I got distracted by this bearing cap. So we'll get our spark plug torqued down, remind myself that I did put a fresh air filter in. I think I did before this happened. And as soon as we get all that buttoned up, we will get tank and plastics back on, and we will get this bike started, take her for a ride. This entire saga actually began a long time ago when I stripped out one of these valve cover screws. That's a long and different story. But man, you better bet that right now, just installing this on the new bearing cap, this is the slowest and most careful I've ever torqued screws in my life. These are precise. I won't strip these again. Saving money is not my main motive for DIY. I DIY because I love to turn wrenches. I DIY because I'm curious and like to know everything about my motorcycles, cars, trucks. But the main reason I DIY is I'm a perfectionist, and I don't always trust others to pay the attention to detail that I do. So along those lines, you saw everything was back together. Valve cover was back on and torqued, and I'd already done some dry rotations by hand. I decided to do some dry rotations by the starter, which give a lot more force and speed than by hand, and then pull everything back apart again and look at it again, right? I just wanted to be sure that everything lined up, that we weren't seeing any signs of damage, that there was no signs of metal on metal abrasion, no signs of metal shavings. And on that note, I am satisfied with everything I'm seeing getting back in here after several dry starter cranks. I gave the engine no fuel. I gave it just starter. Gave it several dry cranks, and I am happy. Is that worth a whole extra torque sequence, putting this thing back together again? Yeah, to me it is. Eyes on it, and making sure that I'm not creating any type of binding, any type of shaving, anything like that. I wanted to be certain of so that when I do button this top end back up, hopefully, I am not entering it again for another 12,000 miles is the plan. All right, we just got our tank floating here. Fuel hooked up, electrical hooked up, vent hose in place, so we're ready to give her the gas. Now, why not bolt down this tank? Simply superstition. Sure enough, you bolt down your tank, there's going to be some reason you got to go back in there. I don't want a reason to go back in there, so I did not bolt down my tank. Okay, this is the moment of truth. Actually, it's the moment before the moment of truth. Let me put this little hose okay, back to our regularly scheduled moment of truth. Here goes nothing, guys.